What is up, guys? It's Ganking here, and today I'm playing some more League of Legends. This is my Shaco 101 guide, the basics of playing Shaco from your jungle clear, ganking, and basic itemization. I'm going to try and keep this video relevant for the Season 5 preseason, so I'm not going to mention specific items or specific builds in this video, but I'm going to mention specific items, that are good on Shaco and say why they're good on Shaco, so then you can buy the Season 5 equivalent as and when they're out. So to begin, start with your W and begin placing your boxes at the buff at around 55 seconds. This is because your boxes last for a minute only, so any earlier you get no effect from the box, and any later you won't get the maximum amount of boxes possible to be placed. So here I'm waiting to take the buff, and it all will seem pretty standard, but let me just break it down for you so you can see a simple technique you might have missed that I employ while taking the blue buff. So while I'm waiting for the buff to spawn, my box is off cooldown, and this lets me place a final box just as the buff begins to spawn, as you can see there. Then the box gets feared once because of the previous boxes we placed, as we're fighting the buff a bit longer, and then you'll see finally we get a second tick of fear right around now. You can see that there. And all this does is keep the buff CC'd for longer, and that helps you reduce the amount of damage you take in the jungle clearing your first buff. The second technique I want to show you involves switching aggro with your boxes to maximise their damage and reduce the damage you take. In this clip I use the attack champions only command to position myself nearer the buff than my box is. This lets me tank the buff so my box can do its full damage, and then I move away from the buff so the box will take the remaining amount of damage as it expires. The default key for attack champions only is the tilde key, but you can change this in your settings. I've got mine set to V, but you can find one that's comfortable for you. Now let's move on to ganking. So here I'm going to use my deceive to get a good angle on a Zed, which is just use his shadow to harass while overextending. Over the wall is a place where a lot of mid laners won't expect to gank from. So I'm going to place a box ahead of Zed so it will get a chance to set up and fear him. I then use the crit from my Q to lead the gank and make sure I keep auto attacking to apply the slow from Shaco's E and the red buff slow. Now try to save your shiver just when they're out of range so you can help apply an extra slow, and their gangplank secures the kill. And I attack the lane before returning to the jungle, but the main thing to take away is to make sure you apply that auto attack slow. A few minutes later and I'm heading back mid. That's because I know Zed's flash is on cooldown and he's overextending again. I'm going to wait in the jungle at the sign for a little while to allow the minion wave to pass by and deny Zed vision of me approaching. You can check whether or not an enemy minion wave is about to pass by if you check the minimap for the position of your minion wave, since the enemy minions are going to mirror yours. This allows you to gank in a more stealthy fashion, I guess. After the minions go past, I'm going to deceive the wall again and crit Zed first. I placed my box pretty poorly this gank since Zed manages to walk past it, but he manages to outplay himself as well, and me and Gangplank secure the kill. I then tax the lane again to make sure I don't get nothing from the gank. Here's an example where a laner doesn't have to be overextended for a gank to be successful. In this clip I'm going to gank the Orianna from as far back as possible, and still manage to blow her flash with a combination of Yasuo's and my damage. As an added bonus, I then walk into Volibear's jungle and notice him by his wraiths. I then realise he needs to go hold the mid lane, and I can abuse this opportunity to counter jungle the wraiths and get an extra little edge on the enemy jungle. The next combination of clips is really here just to reiterate the fact that if you have blown a laner's flash, you really need to return to that lane to abuse this fact. We blow Rihanna's flash quite simply in the first gank, and then a few minutes later I return to the lane and manage to score an easy kill. Now let's move on to the team fighting. So here I leave my allies to deal with the front line, which is Volibear, and I use my deceive to dive straight for the back line of the carries. I can catch the escaping Caitlyn, and then I use my ult to get maximum DPS on an Orianna, which is tunnel visioned onto the rest of my team. An easy cleanup and a quick team fight. In this team fight I managed to draw Blitz's aggro away from the rest of my team. This allows them to carry on the fight while I'm just pretty much drawing CC. I can then use my deceive to catch up with the escaping Caitlyn, once again get ahead of her and burst her down. Unfortunately I go down to my GA, but it's an easy cleanup from then on and the fight was won. Here I want to highlight the importance of Shaco's ult and objective control. Here I use my ult to push down a few towers. Another important use is to use it in securing things like Dragon and Baron, since your ult will apply one-hit effects such as Ravenous Hydra, Blade of the Ruined King, and even the Devourer enchantment. Another useful tip is to use Shaco's Q for scouting. Here I use the Q to face check a bush to check whether or not the enemy is in there. Once I see the enemy I immediately begin to leave because I don't want to de-stealth whilst in their presence. But this gives my team vital information on the positioning of the enemies, even though we don't have a ward. Last and probably least is going to be the itemization. This is mainly down to personal preference, but I will give you some insight on what items I like to use and why. So to start off, you're going to begin with your Hunter's Machete. Doran's Blade start isn't really recommended in the new season because the jungle camps will completely wreck you with that one. So invading at early levels is probably not a great idea, which is where Doran's Blade would have been a good idea. After that, once you've got your 350 gold, you can back and buy any of the new jungle items. All of them are valid choices, and I'm not going to sway my opinion to any in particular. Each of them grants great bonuses. You have the Skirmisher's Smite, which makes you do more damage. You have the Slowing Smite. You have the Smite that gives you AoE clear, which is great if you're going to go for a Devourer enchantment. The only thing I will say is the only enchantment that's a bad pickup is the Magus, or Magus, however you want to pronounce it, and the Juggernaut enchantment. Obviously, you're going to be going for either Warrior or Devourer. Hydra is a great item on Shaco. It's going to give you AoE pushing power, and the active is going to increase Shaco's burst potential, which is key for Shaco's assassinations in ganks. Shiv, Triforce and Infinity Edge are also great items for this reason. They grant good stats and great burst potential. If you're not doing too well, you may also want to consider some tank items such as Thornmail or Sunfire Cape. Tank Shaco can't burst enemies down, but as long as you have finished your Hydra, you can still put up a fight against the enemy carries. If you're going for Assassination Shaco, a Guardian's Angel is an essential pickup as your final item, since you are so squishy. So now I'm going to leave you with my runes and masteries. For runes, I tend to run 4 AD marks alongside 4 armor pen marks, 3 attack speed seals, the rest armor seals, alongside 4 attack speed glyphs, and 4 magic resist per level glyphs, and then I run 3 quints of attack damage. This gives you some early game power with the armor pen and also good clear power with your attack speed and AD. My masteries are pretty standard, picking up things like Dangerous Game in the offense tree. I also pick up Tough Skin to reduce the damage you take in the jungle, but I also like to grab the Fleet of Foot mastery in the utility just to make moving around the jungle that bit quicker. Alright then guys, that's all from me. Thank you so much for watching. If you happen to make it this far into the video, I don't normally ask things like this, but if you could, please leave a like, subscribe, and check out some other videos if you're interested. And yeah, I'll see you next time. Goodbye.